Well, that's a bit of a heavy story. A young lady, teenager, was seen running barefoot. Unfortunately, her very abusive family caught up to her and started kicking and wailing on her in the middle of Gangnam area in Seoul. Obviously, people saw this, were a little bit perturbed and just, I guess, aghast at what they were seeing. And finally, the police came to break up the situation. The father was put into jail quite quickly. I guess he's awaiting trial. But the mother and the son, who both participated, are still out and free. The young daughter is in sort of care for situations like this, but it's still unseen what will happen into the future. And there needs to be a little bit of a better support system for victims of abuse. It seems to be a bit light, according to some people. And so right now, this case has kind of really put the limelight on this sort of violence, because it's not just against children, although that's happened a lot. I mean, we see in the news a little too often these days of how a mother kills their child in Korea and around the world, I'm sure. And that's not just the only part of family violence. There's also violence against people's parents, like children who are a little bit older, 30s, 40s, will kill their elderly parents. Or if there's someone who is infirm, they might have some sort of violence. Or there's someone who doesn't have money, they might be controlled and have some sort of abuse happen to them. So I guess a lot of people are just now calling for this overhaul, this kind of new way or better way of supporting victims of abuse. As for everyone else, the article suggested maybe we should, if we see something strange or abusive, report it immediately. It's not about being a nosy neighbor, it's about saving someone's life, according to the article. And I think that's pretty good advice myself as well.
Definitely.
What do you think is the most common cause of family violence?
I think money is probably a big one. Like you mentioned, the younger kids and the parents, that's oftentimes about money. Or some kind of breakup situation or divorce situation that can often lead to violence. I think those are some big ones. What do you think?
When it comes to especially when it's the more adult area, when it comes to children, I think it's mostly to do with control. Like the parents will put their own desires and wishes onto their children. And if the children don't follow those exactly, then they are disobeying or doing something wrong, and they need to be trained and put back in line. And I think it has to do with control. It's just control, pride, things like that. It's probably not to do with money when it comes to children, but who knows, it could be. Children can start working at early ages sometimes.
You never know.
If you happen to see any sort of victim of violence from a family member, someone you knew or just your neighbors, what would you think of doing?
Definitely try to get them some kind of help. Either talk to them, possibly call the authorities. I think if I was close to them, I would talk to them first.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they can kind of recoil if authorities get involved. So you kind of want to see what they're comfortable with and maybe talk to them directly and see how you can do it. Because if the cops just show up, they might shut down.
No, it was my fault. I fell, whatever.
So I think maybe approaching it that way is the best option.
I think that's a good point. Is sometimes victims of violence, they do need to be approached cautiously, because it's a very complicated situation, and you don't know how they'll react in general. Or just gather evidence and file a report yourself. I don't know. But your advice seems pretty on the nose, I think. I would probably report it if it was someone I didn't know. If it was someone I knew, actually this did happen once. It was someone I knew, and we just talked about it, and the situation resolved in a good way without police involvement. But still, it's talking, communication, very good. And if that doesn't help, then police. Let's go ahead and move our eyes down to the vocabulary. There's some pretty good ones here and a couple good idioms that you could learn and use in your everyday life. So go ahead and give those a check, check those out, and we'll see you in the next one.
Perpetrate.
Perpetrate.
Overhaul.
Overhaul.
Barefoot.
Barefoot.
Ruthlessly.
Ruthlessly.
Undisclosed.
Undisclosed.